pictures of Gaza
Mm,
today,
mm,
it does look, as you say, you described it as apocalyptic, and that's exactly how I kind of envisage it. That's how I see it whenever I look at a picture.
mm,
I wonder how, in that context, my understanding is that there are still medicos and healthcare workers still operating in that
mm.
environment against all the odds.
Yeah,
Do you have a sense of what degree of operation those medical facilities are managing now? I mean, I know you were there in June last year, so we're
yeah,
now
yeah.
going on
It's
for a
worse
year
now. Yeah,
later.
yeah. It's worse now than it was in June last year. But they just make it work.
Mm,
I mean, I was so impressed when I went there because we didn't have things for chest drains and stuff like that, but we would improvise.
mm,
The doctors there would improvise. We had this patient who'd come in, and it was a woman who'd had 85% body burns. I mean, we didn't even know she was a woman when she came in because her face was all burnt, black and burnt. Her hair was all burnt off, and her whole body was char black. She was still alive. And obviously, we made the decision, hey, listen, we can't let her be awake
mm,
in this kind of state. So we decided to put her in a medically induced coma. So we can't measure her oxygen levels or anything like that. I had with me, those little pocket pulse oximeters that you put on people's fingers. That's what I was doing to do an airway. So I was putting that in, and that was to see what her oxygen levels are like while we put her in a medically induced coma and put her to sleep. And I remember after we'd done the airway, there was one of the medical students because we don't have any, or in the emergency department anyway, we don't have any ventilators. So somebody just squeezes air in to ventilate the patient every 5 seconds, they just squeeze the air in. So while this medical student is squeezing the air in, I'm like, right, I need to get a central line in, which is essentially like a cannula,
mm,
but it's a large one that goes all the way into roughly where the heart is,
mm,
enters into the heart. So it's what we call like a high flow line where you can put large quantities of things in,
mm,
and there's a good flow.
mm,
When you put a cannula in a peripheral vein, then one, it's very small. So if you give them drugs that could be somewhat toxic, it might cause a bit of irritation. You can only give things at a certain volume because it's toxic and it's slow. But when you get a central line in, you can give a lot more in because there's a high turnover of blood flow where the heart is. So usually, when people are on life support and things like that, we need to get central lines in. It's kind of the general gist. There's different areas that you can put this central line in. You can put it in the neck. You can put it through the veins through the thighs, the femorals, or through the subclavian, which is in the chest. Usually we do it with an ultrasound. This medical student just got a needle with a syringe, dug it into the chest, moved it around, and then all I saw was the syringe fill up with blood, and he got it in the right spot, just like that. Literally within 4 seconds. Just, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is a medical student. I mean, that's how efficient they are, at dealing with these traumas. And for me, I was just like, I feel like an imposter here.